What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to give you guys some tips and tricks for Kronos, the New Dawn. Kind of beginner, maybe things you should know as you get into this game. And just real fast, I want to thank Bloober Team for providing me a review code for the game. It's a hard one. It's a game I'm really loving, and I'm not all the way through it myself, but I've noticed a couple things that either the game, isn't really clear on, or, makes you think and figure stuff out, and I do like that. So there's a couple things I wanted to throw your way, and let's start with number one, which is honestly probably the most important, which is inventory management, right? So survival horror, and this game goes all in. You have very limited spots. Your guns take up spots, and I gotta be honest, this is a tough one. I've seen people even online saying they gotta patch this, they gotta fix, and maybe make it easier, just how many inventory slots that you have. I don't know. That's a direct thing in the game that you can actually upgrade your suit to add more inventory slots. So I don't know if that's something they can actually improve upon or make easier, let's say. But here's some things that I have noticed as I've gone through. So number one with this, you got to keep track of your bullets, which is kind of interesting because you might say, oh, well, okay, yeah, like when you're shooting an enemy, make sure you have ammo. I don't actually mean that. I actually mean keeping track of how many bullets in like a clip. So that's actually something you can upgrade, which we'll talk about later, how many bullets are in basically a square. So you might have like, say, 6 handgun shots, right? And that's a slot. If you get 7, if you pick up that 7th shot, it'll actually do another inventory slot. So that's what I mean, because your guns already take up a spot. So it's something small, but it actually is maybe the most important part, because your health kind of doubles up, so you can have up to 2 healths at a time, at least to start. And then again, like with those bullets, like just knowing, okay, if I get the 4th shotgun ammo, it's going to make a secondary spot in my inventory screen. And so that takes up a spot from something else. Now, I mentioned the flamethrower. I would keep 1. I would never keep more than 1. Same thing as you go throughout the game and you actually get like the remote detonation thing where you can shoot it and it just explodes on impact if you attach it to an enemy. I sometimes keep 1 of those, sometimes I keep 0 of those, but I would keep like 1 fire thing, just because as you're going out in the environment, oftentimes hidden rooms that'll have quite a few good things in it, it'll be hidden behind, maybe an obstacle of some sort, or it'll be behind something you have to burn. And it might not even be obvious you have to burn it, but you do. And then, you to have something to be able to do it. We'll talk about letting them merge versus not letting them merge later on, but just to keep 1 flamethrower, I think is a good idea. Also, keeping your cores in the storage container. So not every time, but you'll find cores. Generally, you find them in safe rooms. Okay, so when you go into the safe room, you got like the upgrade thing, you got the save point, all that jazz. Oftentimes, you'll find it there, and then sometimes you'll find it in like super good secret rooms, right? Like the biggest of the big. You'll find a core. These are the things to upgrade the most important parts, right? Your health, really, and then inventory slots. And really, in the beginning of the game, you need 1 of them, I believe, and then you're going to need 2, and then you need 3, so on, so on. So what I do is I just store them, because you're really only going to get 1 maybe every 20-25 minutes. To keep it on you is a waste of a spot. And again, like that's that inventory management, managing how much you have there. If there's something you don't need, you don't have it in that inventory. So cores, the only time I use them is when I go into a safe room, and so I'm at the point where I need like 2 or 3. I store them in the storage, and then I'll swap out things, take out 2 or 3 at a time, upgrade myself, and then put everything back. And the final 2 parts with this is try to pick up the valuables when you can, just because they give so much energy, right? I mean, you can pick up energy in like the 60 to 80 increment, and then you can oftentimes get them like 110 and I think 220. The bigger bosses and the hidden rooms, they'll generally have like I think 440. I think that's like the number for energy, but you'll never really pick up 1,000 or 2,000. And if you're picking up a game console, that's one of them. I think a fan is another one. These things can sell for 1,000, 2,000. I think even one sold for 3,500 for me. It was, I think, the biggest thing I had ever sold in that game. So, again, inventory is very limited, but if you have an opportunity to pick up something that could be worth like 2,000, that could be the difference between upgrading something and not. And the final thing is I would keep those chain cutters. You get those rather early, like an hour in the game. Look, you don't have to. I mean, like, you have keys, you have, like, those things that can just open up doors, that are locked. I personally kept that, and I still have it, and I'm like 9 hours in. I'm still having it because you will find rooms that just, you open it with the chain cutters, and it has so much in it. It takes up a spot. So, you could use that spot on ammo or other things, and I get that, and that's that kind of risk reward, right? You're keeping it, you're blocking something, but at the same time, I mean, I've opened countless doors that have had some really good stuff in it because I've had those with me. Okay, number 2 is what to upgrade. So this one's actually much faster compared to the inventory management. So really, I have only upgraded 2 things majorly. I've upgraded the clip size, and I've upgraded the firepower of my weapons. You can do reloading. You can do charge. Charge is maybe a good one. I think I've done that with at least the pistol because I do use charge quite a bit. The thing with this is why I do clip size is that inventory management. That's probably my greatest tip or trick, in this entire video, because say that 7th bullet will make a second spot in your inventory, and it's so important to manage it. I upgrade my clip size so my gun can take more clips. Therefore, I don't ever have that many bullets occupying spaces, if that makes sense, right? Ideally, you probably just want to have your gun and as many bullets in that gun, and then not a lot of like reserve. I mean, yes, you want reserve bullets, but they take up those spots. So that's why, personally, for me, I've really only done those 2. Clip size, I've done as much as I could, and firepower. Firepower, pretty obvious, right? Do the most damage as humanly possible. Again, the charge, I think, is really good because I use charge, and we'll talk about that in a second. Honestly, depending on how good you are with the combat, I feel like you can get away with having a long charge. I don't think it's the end of the world. It's why that's probably the least important of those 3 things. And then the last part of that, in terms of what to upgrade, like I was talking about with the inventory management, those suit upgrades, I've really only done the integrity, like your health, and then the inventory spaces. I haven't done the resources one, I don't think, at all. And again, I'm almost at the end of the game. So those would be the 2, just because, health is important. And then to get as many inventory spots as possible, just so you're kind of loaded. You can have as much health as humanly possible and as many, bullets and all that jazz. You can only do that, or picking up as many valuables as you can. The more spots you have, the better or easier it is to do that. Okay, number 3, and then 4 is kind of attached to 3, but 3 is mainly talking about combat here I want to do. So number 1 is aiming for the head as much as possible most of the time. Here's the deal. There's kind of like a caveat there, because some enemies, the head is not the most important part to them. Most of them are. I guess I'm talking like some bosses, but generally you can get away with like the head is the most important thing. Okay, that's number 1. Always aim for the head. Number 2, in my opinion, I always do charge shots. So when they first introduced this mechanic in the game rather early, I thought it took up more bullets. I thought, okay, well, if you do a charge shot, maybe it takes like 3 shots versus 1. So it turns out that's not, I thought that for like 30 seconds. Not the case. A charge shot is simply a normal shot, but you charge it up and you deal more damage. And that's obviously the catch. The only catch in the negative is that it takes more time, okay? The charge shot is simply just a more powerful shot, but it takes more time to get it off. In my opinion, and you could see from my gameplay, I never even do the other shot. If it's smaller enemies, yes, like there's some like exploding crawling enemies. If I'm shooting a barrel, then yes, that's something that you don't need to hold it in for. But if I'm going after an enemy, really any enemy, I'm always charging my shot. And move around, that's kind of the next part to that. So if you charge a shot, you're gonna need proper timing, because enemies can bridge the gap and all that stuff. But here's the thing, enemies are slow. Enemies will do these animations that you kind of get used to, where you say, oh, okay, you got a little bit of time. And it's something that it takes some time. I've been hit multiple times in this game, but here's the deal. They hit you a couple times, you're dead. So I do understand the importance of not getting hit, but you do have time. Like you can really dance around them. I've like 360'd them before and just gone, or actually, 180, gone behind them and then done it again, another 180. So now I'm back to the front and they haven't hit me, because they'll do swings and kind of ground pounds and stuff. But if you maintain a little bit of distance, and oftentimes it's not as much distance as you think it is. And that's just something that as you play, you kind of get used to, is okay, I have maybe 3 seconds to take this charge shot. Maybe I thought I only had 1 or 2. You might actually have that 3rd second, right? So that's just something that you kind of have to practice on. Couple other things here, using physical hits like hand-to-hand. It's R1 on PlayStation or RB on Xbox. So I mean, I think with a survival horror game, that's kind of like a given. You think about like Dead Space, I would say primarily is a good example of this, or even maybe Resident Evil, right? So you can kind of mix them in. I have tried to take out enemies simply by hitting them, like physically hitting them. That is not something I would like push on you, because oftentimes you're going to get hit at least one time, and that's not really worth taking that hit. So what I have generally found is like, maybe a base enemy will take 3 charge shots in the beginning. Obviously, once you upgrade the weapon power, it'll take less, but say it'll take 3 shots. It might take 2 if you mix in the hand-to-hand stuff. And that's just something, again, you got to experiment with. You do a charge shot, you run in, maybe you wait for them to be staggered or doing like one of their attack animations. You dodge it, you go in, you hit them a couple times, then you back off again and you shoot them again. Basically, it's just trying to save like 1 bullet. You're not going to save like 3, 4, 5 bullets, with this trick. But to be fair, though, if you do this every time, technically you are, right? Because you're kind of expanding it. So if you do this on 4 enemies, in all, you might be saving 4 or 5 shots that you would have otherwise used on them. Sometimes it's too hard. Sometimes you don't want to risk it. I understand that. But I would just recommend going in there and hitting them a couple times when possible. And the final 2 tips I have for this category would be lining up enemies. I think you actually get a trophy for this. I don't know what the trophy, like what I actually did to get it, but this is when it happened. Lining up enemies. So when I don't know if it's actually just a base shot, but again, all I do is charge shots, so it doesn't really matter for me. So when I charge up my shot, what I have found is it actually will go through multiple enemies. So I think my all-time record is 3. I've lined up 3 enemies in a row, and I've shot it, and it's hit all 3. One time I got like a direct kill or an instant kill with 2 in a row. I just shot, I think I hit both of them in the head, and it was the final shot, and they both went down. So you can do that. I mean, that's something that, honestly, if they're in a group, do it. I've done it a lot of times with shotguns. I mean, obviously a shotgun would be easier. If they're like in a row or they're in like a little cluster, I mean, just open fire and you're going to hit multiple of them at the same time. But specifically like a pistol, if you can get them like coming at you in one line, that's something to think about, because a pistol can do a good amount of damage headshot and then charging it. And if you can hit 2 or 3 of them, obviously that would be quite good. And then finally, use explosives. Basically, do anything possible to not use your ammo. It's kind of a big theme here, right? If you see explosives, if there's explosives where they're timed where you can recreate them, right? That's a mechanic in this game. Some explosives, you can blow them up and then you can actually build them back together and use them a second time. If you see an explosive, use it. But again, gather up the enemies. This is something that I just kind of inherently started doing in this game immediately. If you see one explosive barrel and there's 2 enemies, do a couple circles or a couple laps, get those enemies to be right next to each other, lead them to the barrel, shoot the barrel. And finally, this idea of letting them merge. So when I typed this out in terms of my cheat sheet behind the scenes here, I wrote "let them merge?" ? And it's because this is an interesting one. Letting them merge is a thing that the game actually literally says, like, don't let them merge, right? That's the tagline. That's like a huge thing with this game. The interesting thing is, does it matter? And I'm here to tell you that as long as you're careful, and I guess what this really ties into is the flamethrower, okay, or fire, I guess, in all. So I guess what I'm saying here, what I found very early, and I have kept this strategy going the entire game, is simply managing where enemies die at. So if you kill 3 enemies and they're like in a room, just kind of memorize that so don't let another enemy get close. Now here's the deal. This is a huge risk reward. What I do is I clear enemies out as quickly as possible using explosives, using, again, like taking out 2 of them at the same time, whatever you have to do. But my strategy generally is taking out all enemies and doing it in one go. I have had these enemies merge on me in 9 hours, maybe 3 times. Maybe 3 times an enemy has managed to successfully merge with another without me attacking them first to break them out of the animation. Look, they have a visual sign to them where they get kind of like, if you play the game Prototype, it actually reminds me of Prototype. They start to like suck the enemy in, okay? You can see it coming. You will literally see almost like these intestine-like things like engulf the enemy that's going to suck up another one. As soon as you see it, You just hit them. You do something to them, and they'll break out of that animation. It's as simple as that, and that has been my strategy since the beginning. I've done this with bosses. I've done this with grunts. I simply just wipe them all out. And I guess, okay, well, what's the pro of this? Well, number one, sometimes you can't really run away. Like the game originally kind of talked about, well, I've trapped one enemy behind a wall once, so I didn't have to ever go back there. So they're just trapped there for all eternity. But most times, you're doubling back. You're going back to areas a lot. And so if you don't take care of an enemy, like they will come back. I guess that's really where it comes from. Number one, it saves you the hassle of carrying anything fire related, right? I mean, again, like it can be good. Using fire can stun them. Using like that remote detonation thing is a good amount of damage. But it also takes inventory space, and I'd rather have it for other things. So for my playthrough, I really don't carry a lot of flame things all that often because I'm always wiping them out. And again, number two, I guess the biggest reason why I would do this, what I'm telling you, is because you're going to go back to these places time and time again. If you leave an enemy and you say you miss an enemy that died, you miss them, you don't actually set them on fire, and then you run away from one enemy that's left. Eventually, those two will meet, right? The enemy that's alive will find that enemy that's dead, and you'll just have created a bigger problem for yourself. With how I do it, I literally make sure that the entire area is swept. I take care of everybody. So yes, there are like 12 dead bodies on the ground, and all of them can be merged, but I eliminate everybody, so nobody is left to merge. Does that make sense? That's why I do it, and I think that's worked for me in the time that I have played the game. So there you go. There's my extremely long tips and tricks video. You let me know what you think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.